Hello, everyone. Oh, we have a busy morning this morning, and we're not on our usual Thursday. This is a Wednesday because tomorrow is for the American population. Everybody's celebrating Thanksgiving with the turkey and all the good food that people eat, and so we decided that we'd do this a little earlier, a day earlier. So busy day. First of all, we'd like to announce the winner of last week's competition. The question last week was, in which video did I can't remember. I was like, I am so pathetic. In which video? Oh, thank you. Did I tell the story of someone putting their head on my shoulder? And it was a two-part question, and the second part to this question was, and who sent this person? Well, as I say, we have a winner, Brenda. Congratulations to Brenda. I think we sent her an email playing some silly congratulations song or another. The answer was Angels in the Spirit World, the video, and the answer was that was the answer. And who sent this person? They. Yes, and I do go on in the video to explain who they are, but the correct answer is they. She says they sent me from America. So congratulations to Brenda. And now we have next week's question, or this week's question. Is it this week's question? This week's question, and we need all of your answers in, please, before Tuesday, midnight, Tuesday 29th, which is next Tuesday. And this question is, what is this question? In which video, yes, sorry, in which video do I talk about the Healing Minute? You can see that this is a live show, can't you? You can see that I'm not prepared for this at all. I thought I was prepared, but I'm obviously not. So the question for next week, or this week's question, which we shall get the answer to next Wednesday, is, in which video do I talk about the Healing Minute? So thank you to all of you who applied for this week's question. Thank you to all of you who are messing about with us and playing this game with us and enjoying our competition as we are. We have with us today my spirit guide Gregor, as always, who is standing to my right side, and further we have Carolyn, who is sitting to my further right. Say hello, Carolyn. Say good morning.
Good morning.
So here she is. And our topic today is going to be rescue work. Is there such a thing? Do souls become lost? What happens to them when they become lost? How can you possibly rescue a lost soul, etc., etc.? Before we do any of that, did you want to dive in here for a minute, Carolyn? Before we do that, okay, the answer to that question with Carolyn was no. So before we do that, yesterday I was listening to jazz all day as I was working on the cookbook, and I love jazz, and so I thought I would share with you a little of my favorite stuff. And so we're going to play you a little bit of jazz. So, you know, get your earphones on or put your earplugs in if you don't like jazz. I can assure you, you'll like it. This is nice. So, Carolyn, would you like to share our little bit of jazz with everyone? So, hope you're listening. We hope it's going to work. We tried it out. There we go. Press the trees tenderly. I could dance to this now because I love this. The trembling trees embrace the breeze tenderly. This is one of those pieces that I might play to my grandson. And wondering
The shore was kissed by sea and mist tenderly. I can't forget how two hearts met breathlessly. Your arms open wide and close me. It's wrong. You took my lips, you took my love so tenderly.
And while this next little bit is playing, you know, when we are with our loved ones, everything is about tenderness. I try to teach my grandson about tenderness, about being tender with each other. And, you know, we tend to forget in this rush, 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 race, race, race life of ours that, you know, a touch, a tender smile, reaching out to someone, it's a huge thing.
You took my lips, you took my love so tenderly.
Thank you. I love that. So I thought I'd just share it with you because I've been enjoying myself and, you know, playing this music. I've also started playing Christmas carols. Oh yes, it's Christmas is coming and the goose is getting fat. All right. So so there you shared a little bit of my favorite stuff, and let's go right to our questions. The topic again is that of rescue work, rescuing lost souls. And Carolyn, could we have our first question, please?
Our first question is from Katrina. She says, I was not Grandma's favorite. During my childhood night terrors, I would scream I was dead. How did I know a child in the family had suddenly died when Grandma was a child herself, and that Grandma may have thought me possessed? Is there a way to learn more about the child who died? Who she is and what happened to her has been a well-kept secret for at least 60 years.
Hello, Katrina, and thank you for the question. It doesn't quite pertain to rescue work and rescuing lost souls, but I'll do my best to answer it for you, because it seems to me that this child was reaching out to you when you were a child. This child who you don't know too much about was reaching out to you to try to connect with you. Obviously, this child sensed or in some way connected with you and with your energy, and was able in, you know, these moments of connection to show you who she was and maybe even how she died. And I can imagine that your grandmother must have been actually terrified for you, because in some ways it does sound a little bit as if this child is sort of taking over your body, but I don't think that's it at all. I think it's sort of more about her trying to connect with you, because in those moments when she did that, you were empathetic, you had the same energy, you were able to connect on the same link with each other. How do you find out more about this child? Because it's a well-kept secret, you can do one of two things. We have this amazing thing called the internet these days. So you can always, you know, check on the internet. You can do, you can do a family tree. There are lots of ways that you could discover, you know, because church records will have the birth of this child recorded and so on and so forth. So you can do lots of research on the internet, or you can find a really, really good medium, and they're not too easy to find, I have to say. People, the mediums who are able to sort of do this work will go into this kind of thing. But you could find a really good medium, and maybe you could connect with your family in the spirit world who might be able to tell you more about it. So there are two ways. And thank you for the question. It sort of pertains to rescue work, because I do feel that this child was not asking you to rescue her, but she was asking for a connection. And for whatever reason, she took a shine to you. And it may well be that you just have such a similar energy. It could be that you were the same age, so she related to you. It could be a number of reasons. A great story, and how lovely that this girl was able to show herself to you and to connect with you. So that's a really nice thing, I think. Let's have our next question.
This question is from Lauren.
Hello, Lauren.
Rosemary, do you always succeed with rescuing a stuck soul and bringing them to the light or their next dimension?
Lauren, the easy answer to that is yes, because you need to remember that Grey Eagle is the one who brings these, stuck I suppose is a good word, lost is another word, we call them lost souls, but Grey Eagle is the one who brings them to me. And when he brings them to me, he brings them for a reason. He must feel that, you know, I'm able to help, not just me, because when I have done rescue work, I've always had a small group of people with me, a team of people with me who are helping. A team on this earth, and also a team with Grey Eagle, helping Grey Eagle, so that we can help and guide these lost souls to a place where they're able to sort of let go. And I always think of them as soaring to the light. So I've never personally had a disappointment. I've always been able to help those who have been brought to us. And remember, you know, yes, I'm the medium, and yes, I might seem to do all the hard work, but it's all about teamwork, because I couldn't do what I do without other people helping. Okay, next question.
Next question is from Sonia. She asks, why is it that the soul's family in the spirit world is unable to rescue a soul and bring them to the light to be with them? Why?
Sonia, that's great. Sorry, did you not?
Why is a medium needed?
Okay, Sonia, that's a great question. Sometimes, and this is usually the case with people who are lost, and I don't want, and all of you listening, I don't want any of you thinking, oh gosh, is anybody connected to me lost? Because the answer is probably no. And the amount of rescue work is minimal. The amount of lost souls is teeny, 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 teeny. And usually those lost souls are lost, or actually traumatized, because of what has happened to them in the past. And usually those lost souls are people who have been killed, or however died in extremely traumatic circumstances. And so they're not either able or willing to listen to anyone, not even those they love, not even those they know. They'll often just simply close themselves off, bury themselves in their own grief or their own trauma. You know, it's a little bit like, you know, when we have people on this earth and they go into sort of a catatonic state because they're so traumatized. And there are souls who, as they pass, very few, minimal amount, who, because of the trauma, go into this sort of like a semi-catatonic state. And that's when they need the help of a medium. They need the help of somebody like myself. Because, and let me explain this a little bit, usually what happens, in fact, or pretty much always what happens when we do a rescue, the medium makes his or herself available. We make our physical body available to that person who needs rescuing. And we basically move out our soul moves out of our body with our etheric spirit body. So we're not, you know, bodiless, so to speak. We move out of our body and we allow a person to enter our body and to use our body, to use the arms, the legs, mostly the voice box, so that they can describe or show us. And they have this ability to, if you like, almost feel human again. They have this ability to reenact what happened to them. And that's usually what happens. They reenact how they died inside of the medium's body, using the medium's body. If you ever watch anything like this, it looks really weird, because it looks like the medium is sort of doing some kind of crazy theatrics. But the person who is using the medium's body will reenact, talk about, explain, so that they can come to grips with it. They're reenacting it not for our benefit, they're reenacting it for their own benefit. They're reliving it so that they're able then to understand it. And as they relive it, we have people in the spirit world, and we have my team of people who are helping, who are able to talk them through, and to talk them through what happened, and to bring them to a good place. This is not an easy thing to do. It's very dangerous, can be a very dangerous thing for the medium, because when you leave your body, it's nice to be able to get back in at some point. So it's always has to be done in a very controlled environment. Trance work, this kind of rescue work, has to be done in a very controlled environment so that the medium stays safe. And again, on top of all of that, if you remember, I have Grey Eagle, who is always by my side, who is not only helping me to deal with all of this, but helping that person who is using my physical body. So that person who needs rescuing will have Grey Eagle, and will have Grey Eagle's team, and will also have their loved ones in the spirit world who are gathered around to help them through this. And as the medium, I have Grey Eagle, and I have my team who are able to talk, to ask questions of the person who's using my body, and to, and it's a very tricky thing, to help them to understand what is happening, and to help them through, to talk about it, and to relive, but also to have that relief of being able to talk about it, which is that step then that we can then send them to the light, help them on their way to the light. Let's have our next question.
This is from Martin.
Hello, Martin.
You kind of touched upon this question. Are lost souls wandering around alone in darkness, and how long are they stuck there before you find them?
Well, yes, I did sort of answer the question. Thank you for your question, Martin. The time that someone is lost varies with the individual. I've had experience of people being lost for many, many years. And I've had experience of people being lost perhaps only for a short period of time, maybe, I don't know, months even. To find mediums who are able to do this work is not easy. It's a very tricky and a very specialized area. In those situations, we need all the help we can. But as I said, it's sort of, people, when they die in like vicious trauma, give you an example, a woman who was decapitated as she was driving along in a car, a woman who was buried alive in a coffin, and I can't imagine the trauma of that. A child who was, many years ago, when they had those, the big old lung machines, and she had a lung disease, and she was in a lung machine for years, and her family were always with her, and she was a precocious little thing, actually, this kid, lovely little thing. But when she finally died, she just refused to go anywhere. All she wanted was her mummy, mama, 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 and wouldn't listen to anyone else, wouldn't move on anywhere else. So, you know, there are lots of examples of you know, rescue work, but they usually, lost souls are those who die in terrific trauma. Let's have our next question, shall we?
Great. Can a medium rescue a dark soul and convince them to go to the light and make peace with God and themselves? Anna asks that.
Anna, thank you for the question. I've never been asked to rescue a dark soul, so this is an area that I'm looking to Gregor as I'm trying to answer this question. I'm looking to Gregor to see if he wants to say anything. And our role in all of this and in this kind of work is not to persuade people to go to the light or to stay. You know, we're dealing with souls of the light. When I rescued this little girl, she was a soul of the light. She was not a dark soul. She was a soul of the light, and only stuck because she just wanted her mother, and she didn't want to go anywhere without her. In the case of the woman who was buried alive, you know, an amazing story and a really sort of scary story in a way. She was a soul of the light. When she was actually brought to me, as I say, I was with my team, and you know, I knew it was coming, and I wasn't always happy to step out of my body. I have to tell you, sometimes I was sometimes a reluctant helper because, you know, sometimes it's a bit scary to have, you never know who you're going to let inside your body. But I can assure you that Greg will never let in dark souls into my body, that's for sure. So this particular time with this woman, she used my body. As she climbed into my body, it was already apparent to me the severe trauma that she was under. And as she became more familiar with my body, she actually lay prone. If you can imagine, as I said, if you're watching something like this, you might think, oh God, this is, you know, a bit theatrical. But I had a huge leather Chesterfield sofa, and I ended up with this woman inside of me, laying on the back of the sofa with my back arched like this. Now, I have a bad back, I have kidney issues and all the rest of it for years and years. It's not possible for me to get in that position. Physically, I cannot get into that position. I would be crippled for a week or two if I tried it. However, and those who know me know this, because it takes me ages to get up sometimes and straighten my back out. But in this particular instance, all of my team were watching as I was literally arching in almost like in a big U shape off of the back of the sofa and clawing at the inside of the coffin. And I can remember, because I was, you know, sort of standing next to this woman, standing outside of my body, but still able to watch what's going on and to hear what was going on. And I could see her fingernails were completely broken down. The ends of her fingers were totally bloody and nails torn off. All of her finger ends absolutely bloody as she desperately tried to scrabble to get out of the coffin. Now, why would she want to relive it? I guess she wanted to relive it so that it, you know, it's almost as if, you know, she'd been reliving it over and over and over again by herself. So when she used my body, she was able to relive it again, but she also had a team of people who were helping her and talking her through it and explaining to her that, yes, although this happened and she can't change it, here she now has an opportunity to move on and to move forward. And we were able to calm her down, and we were able to talk her through what had happened to her, and she eventually went to the light. But as the medium doing all of this and helping, in order to help, I need to be able to see what is going on, and I need to be able to, so as that person is reliving their death, I'm also reliving it with them. So it was as if I personally was in that coffin. When I looked at my hands and my fingers, they were bloody and bleeding, and my fingernails were torn. This is not an easy thing to do, as I've said. very few mediums want even to go there to do this, but it's a necessary thing to do, and it's a helpful thing to do. And it's all to think that there are people who are so desperate that they sort of, you know, they need this kind of help, and they need to relive this in order to move forward. Let's have our next question. I think we should have something a little bit lighter. It's like,
well, a lot of people have asked, how does Grey Eagle choose who to bring you in order to rescue? And I thought perhaps you could talk about the Coke Pepsi conglomerate story.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly, if this was, I might have told this story before, so if I have, forgive me. And I'll make it short and brief because we do have lots of questions. But somewhere outside of New York City is the head offices of either Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola, and I do not remember which it was. But I was asked to go there. Actually, I think I might have asked myself if I could go there, because I heard the story of this beautiful. It was once a huge park. There was a mansion there, and the cola people used it as their head offices, and they used the mansion for classrooms, for balls, for Christmas balls, for their staff, etc., etc. And I was told that this place was definitely haunted. I'm not going to go into the entire story because, you know, buy the books and read the stories. You'll find them absolutely fascinating. And this story to me was really, really fascinating. Well, I thought that I was going to this place on a whim of mine. But we know that there are no coincidences, don't we? We know that, you know, Grey Eagle had a plan in mind all along. And not only was I able to rescue the woman who had been in the house for more than 50 years, she had taken her own life. It was a very tragic story. It happened in the 1900s. She married this wonderful young man. They were deeply in love, and it was only after they married that they discovered that they were first cousins or something, which was in those days not acceptable. And so they committed suicide. She returned in her physical body. She returned to the mansion. She just didn't want to be anywhere else. The trauma of what had happened to her and why she'd taken her own life was too much. And so she decided that she wanted to be somewhere safe and to stay somewhere safe. So basically what she did was, without even realizing it, she was haunting this place. And I was, you know, brought in by the spirit world, even though I thought it was my own idea at the time. I was brought in by the spirit world to help this woman, not to do a physical rescue in that way, but very often with places that are haunted, usually they're haunted, and I use the word haunted loosely. Very often these places are haunted by people who are, they get stuck. They don't know how to move forward. They want to stay where they feel safe, or they want to stay with their loved ones, or they, you know, they don't want to leave their loved ones because, you know, they don't understand quite yet that they could help them better if they were to move on. So people do get stuck in that way. And in this particular case, I was able to help this lovely woman. We had a lovely party for her, and I helped her to move on. And her brother, who had died only weeks before I arrived at this place, yes, it's very convoluted story. The brother was the one who actually came to me when I was in the house to say, Rosemary, could you please help us, because we need to get her out of this place and we need to bring her to the light, which is what we were fortunately able to do. I don't know if that has answered that question, but can we have our next question, please?
It's a little off subject. But
a little off subject?
Yes.
Come on.
But this is Christina from Copenhagen.
Yes. Hello, Christina.
She says, I hear many people say to me that my father and now my husband helped me a lot from the spiritual world. My question is, how can they help us exactly? And thank you for your beautiful smile.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Well, how do they help us exactly? Well, they can only help us if we're prepared to listen. And, you know, so many of us just don't listen, or we say we don't know how to listen. Those in the spirit world, and in some ways this does pertain to rescue work, because with rescue work, it's all about listening and about paying attention. When our loved ones in the spirit world come to us and they visit with us and they see us sort of heading down the wrong path, or they see an opportunity that we're reluctant to take but they want to urge us on, then they will push us or prod us or whisper in our ear, or they might show us signs that they're with us to encourage us. But, you know, in order for them to be able to help us properly and thoroughly as we want them to, we have to listen, and we have to listen carefully. We have to listen, you know, to the voice of our soul. We have to listen to our instincts. We have to listen to that inner voice. And, you know, we have to accept and understand that if we ask a question of our loved ones in the spirit world, the trick is to ask a question that has a simple answer, either a yes or a no is the best. You know, don't ask a question that can have many different answers, because you won't be able to listen properly, you won't be able to understand properly, and you can easily get confused. So, you know, should I drink this glass of water? Yes or no? The answer's, yeah, Greg was laughing at me. Yes, because I need to drink lots of water because of my kidney issues. So yes. So when you ask a question of the spirit world, make sure that the answer is a yes or a no, a simple yes or no. And that way, and as you learn to listen and as you learn to connect with them, you can become more adventurous and you can ask more questions. Once you're able to hear them, once you know that you've got to pay attention and that you should listen, once you do that, then you can ask more complicated questions. And you know, let them help you, but they can't help you at all if you're not listening. So,
got another question.
Okay, let's have another question.
Mary asks, have you ever rescued a living soul from a lost soul?
Mary, whoa, have I ever rescued a living soul from a lost soul? That would imply that that lost soul is hanging on too closely or clinging to that living soul. And I have a story. I might have told this story before, but it concerns a young man who had tried to commit suicide. His mother and his grandmother were hanging on to him for grim death, so to speak, literally. They didn't want to go anywhere. They wanted to control him in the same way as they'd always controlled him when they were living, for different reasons. The mother wanted control simply because she wanted control. The grandmother wanted to wrest control from the mother to give back to her grandson. So it's a very tricky circumstance. And I was, in that particular instance, able to help this young man to find himself and to find his own voice. And also I was able to help him to understand what a controlling, conniving mother he had. I'm sure she loved him. She was just a controlling, conniving being. I was able to help him to say, you know, you don't have to believe everything she says, and you don't have to do what she's trying to tell you to do. And you know, pay more attention to your grandmother, because your grandmother has your best interests at heart, whereas your mother has her own best interests at heart. So yes, in that respect, yes, I have rescued living souls from departed souls. Gosh, that gets a bit complicated. Do we have any more questions here? It's getting very complicated in this.
No, Just your personal question.
Just my personal question. Well, before we have the personal question, I would like to elaborate a little bit on the story about the little girl in the lung machine, because I know that there are many of you out there, mothers, many of you who've lost your children, and I don't want you for 1 minute to be thinking that those children are lost. This was an extremely unusual circumstance. This little girl was in a lung machine for all of her life, and she lived and breathed in this machine. Her family, and particularly her mother, they were there for her. Someone was with her most of the time, the majority of the time. She was a very spoiled little girl. Yes, I know it's hard to imagine. There's this kid locked in this lung machine, but she was spoiled. Whatever whim, whatever fancy, whatever she wanted, she was given. She was completely and utterly, absolutely spoiled. And we probably would all do the same thing. But you know that, I don't know if you know the story of there was a little boy, the little girl with the curl. The little girl was horrid. I mean, little girls with curls who are spoiled can be really, really horrid. And this little girl, as darling and as lovely and as cute as she was really, really a horrid kid, because she was extremely demanding. And when she was brought to me, she was sort of, let's say, halfway down the tunnel. And I'm talking about the tunnel that takes us from this world to the next. And she was halfway down and she refused to go any further. And she was literally stuck in this tunnel. She wouldn't go on to the light. She turned her back on it and she couldn't go forward. She couldn't come back. And she sort of had gotten halfway there and just decided, because she was stubborn and spoiled and a horrid little thing, she just decided she wasn't going to go anywhere without her mother, and that was the end of that. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a child in full-blown tantrum. This was a child in a full-blown tantrum. She'd always been given her own way, always, and she wanted her mama, and she wasn't going anywhere without her. How long she'd been in this tunnel and how long this tantrum had gone on for, I don't know. I suspect not too long. But if there is one person in this world who can get a kid out of a tantrum one way or another, it would be me, because I'm a tough cookie and I'm really good with kids. And we tried, my team and I, we tried persuasion. We tried talking to her. And the good thing about this particular thing was that this child was not actually using my physical body. She was actually brought to me, and I was able to go down the tunnel and to meet her in the tunnel and to talk to her. And my team could see by what we said and hear from what we said exactly what was happening. Well, I tried every persuasion in the book, talking about how she was going to meet her loved ones, how it was going to be lovely. She could play, she could be happy, she could have her health back, and so on and so forth. And she just basically said to me over and over and over again, I'm not going, and you can't make me. Now, we're talking about a 7 or 8 year old little thing, right? Stubborn, and quite horrid. Adorable, but horrid. So at some point, this went on, and at some point I'm looking to Gregor and I'm saying to Gregor, well, I'm a bit lost with this, I don't know quite what to do, and so on. And he just encouraged me, keep going, you're doing fine. All of a sudden, a light bulb went on. What would I do with my own child in this particular situation where I'm not going to do it and you can't make me? So I applied a little psychology and I began telling her, well, actually, I don't know that you can go there. I don't know that they'll have you really. They don't like naughty, horrid little girls who have tantrums. So I don't think you can go there. And her reply was, I can if I want. My reply was, I don't think you can. I'm not really sure, but I don't. Oh, yes, I can, and so on and so forth. And it took a while, and it took a lot of patience before this little girl jumped up and started running and skipping happily down the tunnel to the light. So, you know, some of our rescues are traumatic, and some of them, you know, are wonderful. This little girl, this lovely little girl, yes, she was being horrid because, you know, she was missing her mummy. I mean, and who wouldn't be horrid missing their mummy? And that's all she wanted, really. She wanted her mummy. And it was wonderful because I watched her go down the tunnel and I watched her go towards the light, and I saw her angels reaching for her as she ran to them. And I knew that everything was going to be fine. I just thought I'd tell you that story. Yes, and now do we have another question or what? Or is it time for...
No,
all right, okay.
We've got Brenda, this week's winner, on live.
Congratulations,
She
Brenda.
said that was such a wonderful story.
Oh, thank you. Good.
We have a new visitor. His name is Thomas, and he has a question.
Hello, Thomas.
I had an experience with a lost soul about 2 years ago. I called a medium, and she found a portal in our basement and closed it. Found a portal in our basement and closed it. So my question is, how does a portal appear?
Don't know that. I don't really understand that. I'm assuming that then you didn't hear from this lost soul again. That is not how everybody deals with these things differently. That is not how I would have dealt with it. I would have wanted to talk to that person. I would have wanted to see if I could help them. I would have wanted to know what their issue was and why they were there, and you know, why your particular house or why you in particular. So that's the route that I would have gone. There are lots of, let's say, portals. There are lots of, you know, I think I've said this before, the universe is, as Grey Eagle describes it, like holes in a cheese with passages going this way, and this way. So there are lots of tunnels, there are lots of places to access, there are lots of portals, if you like. But I think it's sad that, you know, perhaps you didn't manage to find out who this person was and why they were there and what they needed. But thank you, Thomas, for the question, and thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying us as much as we're enjoying all of you.
Personal question.
Okay, the personal question. Oh gosh, here we go. Yes.
And we need to replay the song at the end because a couple of people missed it and somebody said it was a little bit muffled. So.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Do you still do rescue work, and how many other mediums do you know that have done this or still do? And have there been any mediums that have inspired you?
I don't do rescue work so often. It's extremely harrowing and takes a great deal of energy, and I'm an old lady now. Not quite sure. I'm sure I could do it if I needed to, but on occasion I still do, but not so often. Do I know mediums who? I don't know one single medium who's ever done a rescue in that you allow the person to enter your body and to use your physical body. And I've never spoken to another medium or heard of another medium who has done such a thing. There are one or two mediums who have inspired me. One in particular, when I first began this work, her name is Estelle Roberts. She has since passed. She wrote a book. It was originally written 40 Years a Medium, and then they 10 years later they republished it 50 Years a Medium, and it's a great read. And Estelle Roberts was a physical medium, which means that you know what, let's have that for another show, for another time. Let's talk about physical mediumship at another time. Physical mediumship, what are apports? Do you know what they are? Some of you might and some of you What, years ago, mediums used to use, they called them trumpets, or they used a board with numbers, and the spirit world was able to move the board around. Ouija boards is another example of physical mediumship. Ectoplasm, one or two great stories about ectoplasm. So this is physical mediumship, which we will discuss. Shall we do it next week? Why don't we do it next week? Let's discuss physical mediumship next week. So if you have any questions about physical mediumship, Estelle Roberts was one of those who was able to, do a little of this physical mediumship. Very few mediums do it nowadays. We shall talk more about why that is next week. All right, so if you want to enter our competition, you need to email us, rosemary@rosemaryaLtea.com. Find us on Facebook or Twitter. Did I miss anything out?
No, if you just want to read the question again, and which video?
The question for next week is, and for the competition is, actually it's this week's question.
Yes.
Have all your entries in by next Tuesday the 29th by midnight, and the question is, in what video do I talk about the healing minute? I've just shocked Carolyn because she didn't think I'd remembered, but I did. We're now going to play the music again because, some of you enjoy it. We're going to turn it up a little bit louder. I'm going to be singing and dancing. And at the end of this piece of music, we are going to fade out. So, well, maybe not. Have a fabulous, wonderful Thanksgiving, all of you who celebrate. Those of you who don't, be like me, I'm making a lemon cake. What's not to celebrate about a delicious lemon cake? And have a very blessed day. Listen to this music. I love it. And, this is about tenderness, which we all need.
Press the trees tenderly.
I always think of holding my grandson when I hear this.
The trembling trees embrace the breeze tenderly.
And rocking him to sleep, especially when he was a little baby.
And I wandering and lost in our song will be. The shore was kissed, my sea and mist tenderly.
I'm going to dance again. Are you ready for this?
I can't forget how two hearts met breathlessly.
I love jazz.
Your arms open wide and close me inside. You took my lips, you took my love so tenderly.
I especially love, let me see, who do I love? I love Eartha Kitt. I love all those fabulous Lena Horne. I love all of those fabulous women singers. I especially love the saxophone. You're really interested in this, aren't you?
You took my lips, you took my love so tenderly.
please, please, please have a blessed day.